Elara lived in a house that smelled perpetually of warm earth and sun-dried clay, a scent that clung to her apron and wove itself into the threads of her hair. Her small pottery studio, nestled on the edge of Willow Creek, was a haven of quiet creation. From her sun-drenched window, she could watch the river shimmer past, a ribbon of silver unspooling through the verdant valley, and the ancient willow trees dipped their graceful branches as if in silent conversation. Willow Creek was a village whispered into existence by time itself, a place where cobblestone paths meandered between cottages adorned with climbing roses and jasmine, and the rhythm of life beat with a gentle, unhurried pulse. Elara adored it, adored the way the morning mist kissed the rooftops, the friendly greetings exchanged over garden fences, the shared laughter that spilled from the village inn on a Friday night. Yet despite the warmth of her community, a quiet, almost imperceptible longing often settled in her heart as dusk painted the sky in hues of lavender and rose. It wasn't a sadness, more a gentle curiosity, a whisper of a question about a connection yet to be found. Her days were filled with the grounding work of her hands. She'd spend hours at her wheel, shaping damp clay into elegant vases, sturdy mugs, and whimsical garden ornaments, each piece infused with a little piece of her soul. The rhythmic whir of the wheel, the cool, yielding texture beneath her fingers, the focused concentration, these were her meditations. In the evenings, she'd read by the flickering light of her fireplace, a cup of herbal tea steaming beside her, or wander down to the river's edge, skipping stones and watching the stars emerge like scattered diamonds on a velvet cloth. It was during one such quiet evening, as she sat with a half-finished book in her lap, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls, that she first heard it. A sound so soft it could have been the wind sighing through the eaves, or the house settling. But it wasn't quite either. It was more like a breath, a faint exhalation, right beside her ear. Elara paused, tilting her head. "Hello?" she murmured, half expecting to see a stray moth fluttering too close, or perhaps the playful ghost of the old house. Nothing. She shrugged, attributing it to her imagination, a trick of the firelight. A few nights later, it happened again. She was glazing a delicate porcelain teacup, her brush making careful strokes, when a distinct, almost melodic hum vibrated through the air. It wasn't a sound she heard with her ears, not really, but felt deep in her chest, a pleasant resonance that made her pause, her hand hovering. It felt warm, and somehow familiar, though she knew it couldn't be. She started to notice these subtle occurrences more frequently. Not always sounds, but impressions. A sudden, unexpected waft of a scent she couldn't place. Old parchment and rain-kissed earth, dissolving as quickly as it appeared. A fleeting image, like a half-remembered dream, of a sun-dappled forest path, not unlike the one behind her house, yet subtly different. Sometimes it was just a feeling, a gentle pressure on her heart, a sense of profound peace that wasn't entirely her own. At first, Elara dismissed them as quirks of an overactive mind, the musings of a solitary artist. She spent her days in quietude after all, and perhaps her mind simply sought out company in its own peculiar way. But the feelings grew more distinct, the impressions more vivid. They always came when she was alone, when her thoughts were calm and open, usually in the quiet hours of evening or the soft hush of early morning. One morning, as she kneaded clay, working out the air bubbles with practiced ease, a clear single word bloomed in her mind, not spoken aloud, but felt with an undeniable clarity. Beautiful. It was accompanied by a wave of warmth, a gentle appreciation that seemed to encompass not just her pottery, but her very being. Elara froze, her hands still in the clay. Her cheeks flushed. It felt personal, intimate, even. She stared out her window at the swirling mist over the river, her heart beating a little faster. This was no trick of the imagination. This was something else entirely. A connection, perhaps? But with whom? And how? Over the next few weeks, the whispers became her secret companions. They were never intrusive, never demanding, always gentle. They were fragments of thoughts, echoes of feelings, glimpses into another soul's quiet observations. Sometimes, they were just a profound sense of presence, a comforting hum that filled her studio, making her feel less alone as she worked. She started to experiment, albeit cautiously. One afternoon, feeling particularly pleased with a newly fired bowl, She held it up, admiring its delicate glaze. In her mind, she thought, I hope it finds a good home. Almost immediately, she felt a soft, affirming warmth and a new impression, clearer than before. A sense of quiet satisfaction, a feeling of gentle agreement. It was like a silent nod from an invisible companion. Her heart fluttered. She was communicating. Or, at least, she was being heard. And whoever was hearing her, whoever was sending these gentle whispers, seemed to be kind, thoughtful. The whispers began to paint a subtle portrait of this unseen person. They carried a deep love for nature, for quiet moments, for the simple beauty of everyday things. There was often a sense of introspection, a touch of gentle melancholy, but always underpinned by a profound capacity for warmth and understanding. She felt a connection to forests, to the scent of old books, to the sound of rain on a window pane, sensory details that weren't part of her immediate environment in Willow Creek, but seemed to emanate from this unseen counterpart. One evening, as she struggled with a particularly intricate design for a new series of ceramic tiles, feeling frustrated and a little disheartened, a wave of soothing calm washed over her. And then, a clear, almost tangible thought. Patience, little artist. Beauty finds its way. The words, though silent, resonated with such tenderness that tears pricked her eyes. It was exactly what she needed to hear. She took a deep breath, smiled, and returned to her work with renewed focus. The frustration melted away. She found herself talking to the whispers, silently in her mind. She'd share her day, her small triumphs and minor frustrations. The glazes turned out perfectly today, she'd think, and feel a responsive warmth. I saw a kingfisher by the river, its wings a flash of sapphire, she'd muse, and sense a shared delight. It felt less like talking to herself, and more like a gentle ongoing conversation with someone who listened with a profound understanding. The idea of who this person might be began to consume her thoughts in the most delightful way. Was he far away? Was he near? Why, Irene? She wasn't outwardly special, just a potter in a quiet village. Yet, these whispers treated her with such reverence, such quiet affection, that she felt seen in a way she never had before. She began to feel a blossoming of something new in her heart, a tender sprout of emotion she couldn't quite name. It was more than curiosity, more than comfort. It was a yearning, a deep, resonant echo of the longing she sensed in the whispers themselves. It felt like love. An inexplicable, ethereal love for a soul she had never met, whose face she couldn't picture, whose voice she'd never truly heard, but whose presence had become as real and comforting as the sunlight through her studio window. Her nights became a blend of peaceful sleep and vivid dreams. She would dream of walking through sun-dappled woods with an unseen companion, their presence a warm, comforting hum beside her. She'd dream of hands, strong and gentle, shaping clay beside her own, though she never saw their owner. She'd wake with a feeling of profound contentment, a sense that she was not alone, that a connection was being forged across invisible miles. The whispers grew stronger, more consistent. They were no longer just fleeting impressions. Sometimes she could almost hear a low, resonant murmur, a sound like distant thunder, comforting and deep. She started to recognize patterns, specific emotional signatures that were uniquely his. A particular wave of quiet strength, a touch of wry humor, a deep well of empathy. She started leaving little offerings, small tokens of her thoughts. A freshly baked scone on her windowsill, hoping the scent would somehow carry to him. A particularly beautiful wildflower pressed between the pages of a book, imagining him finding it somehow. It was silly, she knew, but it felt right, a way to acknowledge the depth of their unspoken bond. One evening, as the first stars began to prick holes in the twilight sky, Ilara sat by her riverbank, skipping smooth, flat stones across the water. Each skip made a delicate plink, 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 plink. She felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet joy that was amplified by the presence of the whispers around her. This was more than just a feeling now. It was a conversation, a silent duet of souls. She closed her eyes, letting the cool evening air kiss her face. "Who are you?" she thought, sending the question out with all the longing in her heart. "Where are you?" For a moment, there was only the sound of the river, the rustle of the leaves. Then, a distinct impression, clearer than any before. a feeling of vastness, of distance, but also of an unwavering desire to bridge that space. And then, a word, soft and echoing, not in her ears but in her very soul. Searching. And with it, a feeling of being drawn, inexorably, toward something profoundly important. Elara opened her eyes, gazing at the horizon, a new resolve blossoming in her chest. She wasn't just receiving whispers anymore. She was being called. And she knew, with a certainty that resonated through every fiber of her being, that she would answer. The word resonated, not just through her soul, but through the very fabric of the world around her, seeming to hum in the air, in the distant waves, in the rustle of the leaves. Elara stood there, eyes fixed on the horizon, feeling as if a hidden compass within her had just spun to life, pointing with unerring accuracy. Searching? It wasn't a question, but a shared truth, a quiet declaration from another soul, echoing her own unspoken yearning. A profound sense of peace settled over her, chased quickly by a vibrant rush of anticipation. For so long, these whispers had been fleeting, ethereal. Now, they were a call to action. Her days of simply waiting, of wondering, were over. She wasn't just a recipient, she was a participant. She spent the next few days in a whirlwind of quiet preparation. She didn't speak of the whispers to anyone, not even her closest friend Maeve, who would likely just smile knowingly and suggest Elara was finally dreaming with her eyes open. This feeling was too sacred, too personal, to be dissected by words. Instead, Elara focused on the practicalities. She packed a small, sturdy rucksack with essentials. A worn, leather-bound journal, a few changes of clothes, a well-thumbed map of the region, and a small, smooth river stone she'd carried for years, a tactile anchor to her own inner quiet. The call wasn't a booming command, but a gentle, persistent tug, like an invisible thread unwinding from her heart, pulling her northwest towards the ancient mist-shrouded peaks known as the Whisperwind Mountains. She'd always felt a peculiar fascination with that region, a sense of deep-seated familiarity despite never having visited. Legends spoke of hidden valleys there, of streams that sang forgotten melodies, and of stones that held the memories of centuries. It was a place where the veil between worlds felt thin, a place often dismissed by the pragmatic, but revered by the dreamers. Before she left, Elara sought out the oldest inhabitant of her small coastal town, an old woman named Lyra, who ran a dusty antique shop filled with stories. Lyra had eyes that saw beyond the surface of things, and a memory like the tides, pulling up forgotten lore from the depths of time. Elara, feigning casual curiosity, asked about the Whisperwind Mountains. Lyra, perched on a stool amidst teetering stacks of old books, peered at Elara over spectacles perched on her nose. "Ah, the Whisperwinds," she murmured, a faraway look in her eyes. "A place of seekers it is, and of finding. My grandmother used to say the mountains themselves sing to those who listen with their hearts, not just their ears. They say there is a valley, deep within their embrace, where time flows differently, and where ancient connections are reforged." Elara's heart gave a hopeful lurch. "What kind of connections?" she asked, trying to keep her voice even. Lyra chuckled softly, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "The truest kind, dear. Soul connections. They say, if two souls are meant to intertwine, and one is lost, the other will be drawn to that valley, to a place called Echo Haven. It's where the whispers grow loud enough to guide the way." Echo Haven. The name resonated with a strange, beautiful familiarity. It felt like a missing piece of a puzzle she hadn't even known she was solving. Elara left Lyra's shop with a light step and a map marked with a new tentative destination. The journey was long, taking her from the salty tang of the coast to the crisp, pine-scented air of the foothills. She traveled by bus for the first stretch, then by foot along winding, less-traveled paths. Each step felt purposeful, each breath a deeper connection to the earth beneath her feet and the sky above. The whispers, which had once been vague, now felt like a gentle breeze at her back, guiding her. Sometimes she felt a distinct warmth, as if a hand were resting lightly on her shoulder, urging her onward. As she delved deeper into the mountains, the landscape transformed. Towering pines gave way to ancient gnarled oaks, their branches draped with moss like wise old men. Streams, clear and cold, tumbled over mossy rocks, their murmurs sounding almost like voices. The air grew stiller, imbued with a profound sense of age and quiet magic. She found herself pausing, often, not out of weariness, but to simply listen. One evening, as dusk began to paint the sky in hues of lavender and rose, Elara made camp near a waterfall whose spray created a perpetual rainbow in the fading light. As she knelt to light a small fire, she felt it again, stronger than ever. Not just a whisper, but a feeling of profound presence. It was close, incredibly close. She closed her eyes, letting the feeling wash over her. It was a unique blend of longing and peace, a sense of recognition, like remembering a forgotten melody. Then, clearer than any whisper before, a thought, imbued with such warmth and emotion, settled in her mind. "I'm here. Are you... Delway?" Elara's breath hitched. It was a direct question, a vulnerable offering. She wanted to shout back, to affirm her presence, but knew it wouldn't be with words. Instead, she focused all her being, all her hope and longing, into a silent affirmation. "Yes. I'm here. I'm coming. Undera." She spent a restless night, filled with vivid, fragmented dreams. She saw glimpses of a landscape she felt she knew, a hidden glade bathed in moonlight, a tall, shadowy figure with a gentle demeanor, his face always just out of focus. She woke with the first blush of dawn, feeling utterly refreshed and more determined than ever. Following the invisible thread that now hummed steadily within her, Elara trekked for another day. The path became less defined, a faint deer trail winding through dense undergrowth. She navigated by instinct, by the feeling of the pull, until finally, as the sun began its slow descent once more, she pushed through a thick curtain of ancient ivy and found herself standing at the edge of a breathtaking vista. Below her, cradled in the heart of the mountains, lay Echo Haven. It wasn't a village or a town, but a sprawling, verdant valley, lush with wild flowers and ancient trees. A meandering river, wide and crystal clear, snaked through its center, reflecting the soft gold of the setting sun. Scattered throughout the valley were clusters of standing stones, worn smooth by time, arranged in patterns that hinted at forgotten rituals. But what truly captured her attention, what made her breath catch, was a small stone cottage nestled beneath a towering, ancient oak, its chimney gently issuing a wisp of smoke. It looked as if it had grown organically from the earth itself, blending seamlessly into the landscape. And the whispers here were no longer whispers. They were a symphony, a chorus of longing and recognition, swirling around her, through her, from the very air itself. She felt an overwhelming sense of coming home, a deep, resonant peace that settled into her bones. As she descended into the valley, the air grew softer, imbued with the scent of damp earth, wild herbs, and something else, something subtly sweet and comforting, like wood smoke and old parchment. The river sang louder here, its melody seeming to carry the weight of countless stories. She followed a faint path towards the cottage, her heart thrumming with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Was Ahai there? The one who had been calling to her? The one whose presence now felt like a tangible warmth just beyond her reach. As she drew closer, she noticed details that spoke of recent habitation. A pile of freshly split firewood stacked neatly beside the cottage door. A small, well-tended garden bursting with herbs and vegetables. And then, leaning against the rough-hewn timber of the cottage wall, was a beautifully carved wooden bird, its wings outstretched as if caught mid-flight. Its artistry was exquisite, each feather delicately rendered, each curve imbued with life. It radiated a quiet energy, a testament to the skill and patience of its creator. Elara reached out a tentative finger, tracing the smooth grain of the bird's wing. It felt warm to the touch, as if its carver had only just put it down. A wave of certainty washed over her. This was him. The whispers, the presence, the beautiful craftsmanship, it all coalesced into a clear image of the person she was searching for. He was an artist, a creator, someone deeply connected to the natural world. She walked slowly around the small cottage, not wanting to intrude, but wanting to absorb every detail. On a small, sturdy table outside beneath the shade of the great oak lay a half-finished wood carving, a delicate, intricate pattern of intertwining leaves and branches. Beside it, a set of finely honed carving tools, and a small leather-bound journal, open to a page covered in elegant script and intricate sketches. Elara hesitated, but the pull was too strong to resist a closer look. She didn't read the words, respecting the privacy of the journal, but her eyes fell upon a sketch. It was a landscape, undoubtedly Echo Haven, but rendered with a profound sense of belonging. And in the foreground, subtly integrated into the winding river, was a symbol, a delicate, looping knot, familiar to her in a way she couldn't explain. She'd seen it before, not with her eyes, but in her mind's eye, a recurring image in her more vivid dreams. As she gazed at the sketch, a soft breeze rustled the leaves of the ancient oak. She felt a shift in the air, a subtle but undeniable change in the energy around her. Her head snapped up. Standing at the edge of the clearing, partially obscured by the dappled shadows of the trees, was a man. He was tall, with broad shoulders and the lean build of someone who spent much time outdoors. His hair, the color of rich earth, was a little disheveled, falling across a thoughtful brow. He was dressed simply, in practical, dark clothes that blended with the forest. He held a small basket woven from reeds, filled with what looked like freshly picked berries and herbs. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The world seemed to hold its breath. The river's song seemed to quiet. The rustle of leaves paused. His eyes, a striking shade of deep forest green, met hers across the clearing. And in those eyes, Elara saw it. The same longing, the same searching, the same profound recognition that she felt pulsing through her own veins. It wasn't a shock, but a homecoming. It felt utterly right, utterly inevitable. A slow, gentle smile spread across his face, a smile that reached his eyes and crinkled the corners, radiating warmth and a quiet joy. He set the basket down carefully at his feet. "You came," he said, his voice a low, resonant rumble like the distant song of the river. It wasn't a question, but a statement of deep, profound understanding. Elara felt tears prick at her eyes, tears of relief, of wonder, of a joy so pure it felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. She found her own voice a little shaky but clear. "I did," she whispered. "I heard you." He took a step forward, then another, slowly closing the distance between them. There was no rush, no urgency, just a quiet, deliberate movement, as if savoring every inch of the space that had finally, gloriously, been bridged. "For so long," he murmured, his gaze never leaving hers, "I felt you, like a distant star, always there, just out of reach. I heard your thoughts, your feelings, your wonder." He gestured vaguely to his chest. "I felt a tug, a calling, just as you must have felt mine." Elara nodded, unable to articulate the depth of her agreement. Every word he spoke resonated with her own experience, confirming the impossible truth of their connection. He stopped a few feet from her, his presence radiating a calming energy. He didn't reach out, didn't rush. His respect for the moment, for the delicate dance of their meeting, was palpable. "My name is Kalen," he offered, his voice soft. "Elara," she replied, her voice gaining strength, a smile blossoming on her face, bright and genuine. "It's good to finally see you, Kalen." He returned her smile, a warmth spreading through the clearing. "And you, Elara? It is more than good." He glanced at the wooden bird, then back at her. "You found my little messenger." "He led me here," Elara said, looking at the carved bird with new eyes. "It wasn't just a carving, it was a beacon." Kalen nodded, his eyes sparkling with a gentle amusement. "I hoped it might. I carved them, you see, to send out into the world. Little whispers of my own, hoping one would carry the message further. To the one who was searching." He paused, then his gaze deepened. Or rather, the one Wing was searching for. The air thrummed with unspoken emotions, with years of silent longing finally finding their voice. Elara felt a peculiar lightness, as if a great weight she hadn't known she carried had finally been lifted. The world around them, the ancient trees, the singing river, the standing stones, seemed to sigh in contentment, as if they too had been waiting for this moment. "I felt you too," Elara said, wanting him to understand the depth of her journey. "Felt your presence, your quiet strength. And then, the word, searching. It was like a bell ringing in my soul." Kalen's eyes softened further, a profound understanding passing between them. "Yes, that was me. A desperate hope, sent out into the void. I had almost given up hope that it would ever find its way to you." He looked around the valley, then back at her, a hint of awe in his expression. "But here you are. In Echo Haven. It truly is a place of finding." He took another slow step forward, and this time he extended his hand, palm open, an invitation, not a demand. "Welcome, Ilara," he said, his voice imbued with a quiet reverence. "Welcome home." Ilara's hand trembled slightly as she reached for his. His touch was warm, firm, and undeniably real. A jolt, not of electricity, but of deep, comforting recognition, passed between them. It was the feeling of a scattered pattern finally aligning, of a melody finding its missing harmony. Her fingers intertwined with his, a silent promise in the gentle clasp. She looked into his eyes and saw not just a man, but the answer to a question she hadn't known how to fully articulate, a reflection of her own searching heart. The journey was far from over, but the first, most important step had been taken. The whispers had led her true. And in Kaylin's steady gaze, she felt a future unfolding, beautiful and full of hope, just beginning to reveal itself. The world, which had moments ago been a symphony of expectation, now settled into a hushed, intimate melody. Clara's fingers, still intertwined with Kaylin's, felt the pulse of his steady warmth, a grounding presence in the exhilarating rush that swirled around them. Her gaze, still locked with his, held a question, a silent plea for understanding, and in his eyes, she saw an answering depth, a quiet joy that mirrored her own. "Clara," he murmured, his voice a low thrum that vibrated through her, softer than the ocean's lullaby. He didn't say more, but the single word was enough. It was an acknowledgement, a promise, a beginning. A blush bloomed on Clara's cheeks, a warmth spreading from her heart outward. She couldn't articulate the kaleidoscope of emotions swirling within her, relief, wonder, a blossoming hope she hadn't dared to name until now. "Kaylin," she breathed back, her voice a fragile whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the delicate magic of the moment. He tightened his grip on her hand, a gesture of reassurance. "The whispers," he began, a faint smile touching his lips, "they were very clear about you." Clara laughed, a soft, joyful sound that brought a twinkle to his eyes. "They were rather insistent," she admitted, remembering the persistent hum that had drawn her to the island, and then, inexorably, to him. "But I think," she added, her voice dropping to a more serious tone, "they weren't just about finding Jay. They were about finding a part of G myself I didn't know was missing." Kaylin's thumb stroked the back of her hand, a simple touch that spoke volumes. "Perhaps," he said, his gaze drifting to the horizon where the last vestiges of sunset bled into twilight, "we were both a little lost, waiting for the right melody to guide us home." The air around them shimmered with unspoken feelings, a comfortable silence that no longer felt empty, but full of potential. The stars began to prickle the deepening blue above, each one a tiny light of promise. "It's getting late," Clara finally said, a reluctant sigh escaping her lips. "I should probably head back to the cottage." Kaylin nodded, though his eyes held a hint of regret. "I'll walk you." The journey back was different from any other they had taken. Their hands remained clasped, a constant connection, a silent conversation flowing between them. They walked slowly, lingering over every step, acutely aware of the space between them and the gentle brush of their shoulders. The whispers, no longer urgent, now hummed a soft, contented tune, like a lullaby played just for them. They spoke of small things, the way the moonlight painted the familiar path in silver, the scent of night-blooming jasmine carried on the breeze, the distant call of a night bird. Yet, beneath these surface conversations, a deeper current flowed, a quiet acknowledgement of the profound shift that had just occurred. When they reached her cottage, bathed in the soft glow of her porch light, they paused. The moment stretched, weighty with unspoken goodbyes and the promise of tomorrow. "Thank you, Kaylin," Clara said, her voice soft. "For the walk, for everything." He smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes and made her heart flutter. "Thank you, Clara, for listening to the whispers." He hesitated, then leaned in slightly, his gaze searching hers. Will you let me take you exploring tomorrow? There's a hidden cove I think you'd love, where the sea glass collects like jewels." Clara's heart did a little leap. "I'd love that," she whispered, her voice husky with emotion. Very much. He squeezed her hand once more, a final, lingering touch before he gently released it. Until tomorrow, then. Until tomorrow. Clara watched him walk away, his silhouette receding into the moon-dappled path, until he was swallowed by the shadows. Only then did she step inside her cottage, her hand instinctively going to her heart, where a new, vibrant warmth had taken root. The echoes of his touch, his voice, his smile, lingered in the quiet room. She felt lighter, brighter, as if a long-held breath had finally been released. The whispers had led her true, and now they hummed a tune of sweet anticipation. Sleep, she knew, would be a dream-filled journey tonight. The next morning dawned with a crystalline brilliance, the sky a vivid blue, the sea shimmering like 1,000 scattered diamonds. Clara woke with a lightness she hadn't felt in years, a joyful hum already resonating in her soul. She spent the morning puttering around, humming snatches of melodies, her fingers restless to touch the piano keys, yet she held back, wanting to savor the anticipation of the day with Kalen. True to his word, Kalen arrived mid-morning, a wide-brimmed straw hat shading his eyes and a canvas bag slung over his shoulder. He wore simple linen trousers and a soft, worn shirt, looking as effortlessly part of the island as the ancient cypress trees. "Morning, Clara," he greeted, his voice a balm to her ears. "Ready for an adventure?" "More than ready," she replied, her smile bright. She had dressed in comfortable shorts and a light blouse, eager for the day's exploration. He led her along a path less traveled, winding through groves of fragrant pine and gnarled olive trees, the air rich with the scent of sun-warmed earth and distant salt. He pointed out various plants, identifying them by their local names and sharing snippets of their uses: an herb for soothing aches, a flower for attracting specific butterflies. Clara listened, captivated, seeing the island through his eyes, learning its secrets. "This island, it's like a living library," she mused, her gaze sweeping over the vibrant flora. "Every leaf, every stone has a story." Kalen nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. "It does. You just have to know how to listen." And he added, a soft smile playing on his lips, "You, Clara, have a remarkable gift for listening." They eventually descended a steep, winding trail, the sound of crashing waves growing louder with each step, until they emerged onto a secluded beach. It was a crescent of pure white sand, framed by rugged cliffs, and at its edge the water was an astonishing turquoise, so clear she could see the pebbles on the seabed. But what truly caught her eye were the treasures scattered along the high tide line, a dazzling array of sea glass, polished smooth by the ocean's relentless embrace, gleaming like scattered jewels in every shade of green, blue, and amber. "Oh, Kalen," Clara gasped, her voice filled with awe. "It's breathtaking." She knelt, picking up a perfectly smooth piece of emerald green glass, holding it up to the sun. "It's like finding fragments of forgotten rainbows." He watched her, a quiet contentment radiating from him. "I thought you might like it. Each piece has traveled a long journey, been shaped by the sea just like us." They spent hours there, walking along the water's edge, collecting the most exquisite pieces of sea glass, their conversation flowing easily, punctuated by comfortable silences. Clara found herself sharing stories of her life in the city, her struggles with creative blocks, the longing she'd felt for something more, something undefined. Kalen listened intently, his gaze steady and understanding. In turn, he spoke of his life on the island, of his family who had lived there for generations, of his connection to the land and the sea, his role as a quiet guardian of its natural beauty. He spoke of the whispers not as something extraordinary, but as a natural part of the island's pulse, a subtle language he had always understood. "I never felt truly alone here," he explained, picking up a piece of sapphire blue glass. "The island always felt like a companion, a wise old friend. But there was always a space, a quiet longing for someone to share its song with." He met her gaze, and Clara's heart swelled with emotion. Someone who could hear it too. By the time the sun began its descent, painting the sky in fiery hues, their canvas bag was filled with their glittering treasures, and their hearts were filled with a deepening connection. They shared a simple picnic Kalen had packed: crusty bread, local cheese, ripe olives, and sweet figs, sitting on a sun-warmed rock, watching the waves roll in. As twilight gathered, Kalen walked Clara back to her cottage. This time, the goodnight was a little longer, a little closer. He held her hands, his thumbs tracing circles on her skin. I had a wonderful time today, Clara. Me too, Kaylin. It was perfect. She leaned in, a spontaneous gesture, and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. The warmth of his skin beneath her lips, the subtle scent of sea salt and earth that clung to him, sent a shiver through her. He froze for a moment, surprised. Then a slow, tender smile spread across his face. Good night, Clara. Good night. She lingered at her door, watching him leave, her cheeks still warm from the unexpected intimacy. The whispers, she noticed, were now playing a gentle, rhythmic waltz in her mind. Until days melted into weeks, each one weaving a richer tapestry of shared experiences. Clara and Kaylin fell into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings often began with a walk to the village for fresh bread and coffee, or a trip to the small market where Kaylin would introduce her to local vendors, his quiet presence a testament to his deep roots in the community. Clara, once reserved, found herself opening up, chatting with the women selling handmade lace and the fishermen mending their nets, Kaylin always close by, a reassuring anchor. Their afternoons were filled with discoveries. Kaylin showed her ancient ruins hidden deep within the forests, secret waterfalls that cascaded into crystalline pools, and groves of citrus trees heavy with fruit. He taught her the names of constellations that wheeled above the island at night, and the subtle shifts in the wind that foretold a change in weather. Clara, in turn, began to share her world with him. She hesitantly invited him into her cottage, a space she had always guarded as her sanctuary. He sat quietly as she played fragments of new melodies on her piano, compositions that were slowly taking shape, inspired by the island and by him. The music flowed effortlessly now, a river unleashed from a long drought. The island's sounds, the rhythm of the waves, the rustle of leaves, the calls of birds, found their way into her harmonies, given a new depth by Kaylin's silent, attentive presence. It's beautiful, Clara, he would say, his voice soft when she finished. It sounds like the island's soul, distilled into song. One evening, as they sat on her porch, watching the stars ignite the velvet sky, Clara shared a deeper part of her creative journey. Before I came here, she confided, I felt empty, like my well of inspiration had run dry. I was composing, but it felt mechanical, soulless. The whispers led me here, but I think they also led me back to my own music, to a place where it could breathe again. Kaylin reached for her hand, his fingers gently tracing the lines on her palm. The island has a way of revealing what's true. It strips away the noise, leaving only the essential. And your music, Clara, it is profoundly essential. His words were a balm to her soul, healing old doubts she hadn't even realized still lingered. She looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw a man whose quiet strength was a haven, whose gentle spirit understood the unspoken language of her heart. One particularly blustery afternoon, a sudden storm rolled in, trapping them indoors. The rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled around the cottage, a wild, untamed melody. Instead of being daunted, Clara found a strange comfort in the tempest. She sat at her piano, and for the first time played a complete piece, a new composition she had titled Island Requiem. It was mournful, yet full of resilience, reflecting the storm outside and the quiet strength she had found within herself. Kaylin sat by the fireplace, a book unread in his lap, his gaze fixed on her. When the last lingering notes faded, and the only sound was the drumming of the rain, he didn't speak immediately. He simply rose, walked over to her, and knelt beside the piano bench. Clara, he said, his voice thick with emotion, that was a masterpiece. It holds the strength of the cliffs, the sorrow of lost ships, and the enduring hope of the rising sun. It's the island's story, and yours woven together. Tears pricked Clara's eyes, tears of gratitude and profound connection. No one had ever understood her music so deeply, had heard the intricate layers of meaning she poured into each note. She reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek. Thank you, Kaylin. You are my muse. You and this island. He covered her hand with his, holding it gently. And you, Clara, he murmured, his eyes shining. You are the melody I never knew I was waiting for. Later that evening, as the storm began to subside, leaving behind a world washed clean and vibrant, they shared a simple meal by the fireplace. The conversation turned to the future, something Clara had rarely allowed herself to contemplate beyond her next composition. What do you do, Kaylin? she asked, when the whispers lead you to something so precious, you fear it might slip away. He looked at her, his expression tender. You hold on to it, Clara. You nurture it. You listen to its song, and you become a part of its rhythm. The whispers don't lead you to things that are meant to be fleeting. They lead you to what is meant to endure. He paused, then added, and sometimes the whispers aren't just for you. Sometimes they are for both of you together. The implication hung in the air, sweet and heavy with promise. Clara felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. She knew, with uncertainty that resonated deep within her bones, that her journey to the island, guided by those gentle, insistent whispers, had led her not just to a place of creative renewal, but to a love more profound and soul-stirring than any melody she had ever composed. As the weeks continued to unfold, their connection deepened further, becoming an intricate dance of shared moments and unspoken understandings. Clara found herself spending more and more time at Kaylin's simple, elegant cottage, which was nestled on a quiet hillside, overlooking a secluded bay. It was a place of serene beauty, filled with books, maps, and artifacts from the island, reflecting Kaylin's quiet wisdom and deep connection to its history. He, in turn, spent many evenings at her cottage, listening to her play, helping her carry groceries from the village, or simply sitting in comfortable silence as they watched the sunset paint the sky. One warm afternoon, Kaylin led her to a small, hidden garden behind his cottage. It was a riot of color and fragrance, filled with native wildflowers, herbs, and a few carefully tended vegetable patches. A gnarled olive tree, ancient and wise, stood at its heart, offering dappled shade. "This is my sanctuary," Kaylin explained, his voice soft with affection. "I come here to think, to listen, to feel the pulse of the island." He gestured towards a rustic wooden bench nestled beneath the olive tree. "I often feel the whispers most clearly here." Clara sat beside him, breathing in the sweet, earthy scents. A bumblebee buzzed lazily past a cluster of lavender, and the distant sound of waves was a gentle lullaby. She felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, as if she had finally found her true home, not just on the island, but within the quiet embrace of Kaylin's world. "It's beautiful, Kaylin," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "It feels sacred." He turned to her, his gaze intense. "It is, and I wanted to share it with you, all of it." He reached into a small woven basket he had placed beside the bench and pulled out two small smooth stones. One was a deep ocean blue, the other a soft mossy green. "These," he said, handing her the green one, "are from a very old part of the island, near the ancient ruins. They're said to hold the island's memory, its deepest truths." Clara ran her thumb over the smooth surface of the stone, feeling its cool weight in her palm. "What do they mean?" Kaylin held up the blue stone, his fingers closing around it. "The blue for the sea that brought you here, and the depth of your music. The green," he said, touching her stone, "for the land that welcomed you and the growth you found within yourself. Together," he paused, his eyes meeting hers, "they represent the harmony of island and soul." And he added, a gentle smile playing on his lips, "the harmony we found together." Clara's heart swelled with tenderness. It was a simple gesture, yet it spoke volumes of his quiet devotion, his understanding of her journey and their shared path. "Thank you, Kaylin," she said, her voice barely a whisper. She clutched the green stone tightly, feeling its warmth transfer to her skin. They sat in companionable silence for a long time, the whispers around them no longer urging, but now a soft, continuous hum of contentment, like a profound chord held in perfect suspension. Clara felt a future unfurling before her. Not just a series of events, but a living, breathing symphony, with Kaylin by her side, conducting its most beautiful movements. She knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her soul, that this was only the beginning of their shared melody, a love story written by the island, for them, and guided by the ever-present, ever-loving whispers. The first rays of dawn, filtered through the thick canopy outside Clara's window, painted the room in hues of rose and gold. Kaylin was already awake, his arm a warm, heavy band around her waist, his breath a soft rhythm against her hair. She shifted, turning to face him, and found his eyes already open, watching her with a tenderness that made her heart ache in the sweetest way. "Good morning," he whispered, his voice still thick with sleep. a low rumble against her ear as he leaned in to press a soft kiss to her forehead. "Morning," she murmured back, tracing the line of his jaw with her fingertip. The air between them hummed with the lingering magic of the night before, a silent promise that had now taken root. There was no need for grand pronouncements, only the quiet certainty in their intertwined fingers, in the way their bodies fit together, as if carved from the same ancient wood. They spent the morning in the gentle quiet of shared space, making coffee, Kaelin helping her knead the first batch of dough for the day's bread, his strong hands surprisingly deft. The scent of yeast and coffee mingled with the salty tang of the sea breeze drifting through the open windows of the Sweet Whispers bakery. It felt natural, effortless, as if he had always been there, a missing piece slotting perfectly into place. Later, as the first customers began to trickle in, Clara watched Kaelin interact with them. He wasn't just a guest anymore. He was becoming part of the fabric of the island. He listened intently to old Mrs. Gable's stories of her prize-winning hibiscus, shared a laugh with young Leo, who always tried to sneak an extra macaron, and even offered a quiet word of comfort to Mr. Henderson, whose fishing net had torn. His genuine kindness, his easy smile, and the respectful way he absorbed the island's rhythms endeared him to everyone. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in a spectacular display of fiery oranges and purples, they sat on her small porch, the rhythmic crash of waves a constant lullaby. "So," Clara began, her voice soft. "What now, Kaelin?" He turned to her, his profile outlined against the fading light. "What now?" he repeated, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Now, we build. We live. We love. We bake a lot of bread." She laughed, a genuine, joyful sound. "You're really staying? Where else would I go?" He took her hand, intertwining their fingers, his thumbs stroking the back of her hand. "This island, these whispers, they led me here, Clara. To you. I feel more at home here than I have anywhere in my life. I want to build a life, or a life." The sincerity in his eyes melted any lingering doubt. "What about your work, your life in the city?" He shrugged. "That life, it wasn't truly mine. It was a template I was trying to fit into. Here I feel like I can create something real, something that matters. Maybe I can still design, but not glass towers. Maybe homes that respect the land, that breathe with the island. Or maybe I just help you expand the bakery, build an outdoor patio where people can enjoy your creations with a view of the sea." His eyes twinkled. "Imagine a little covered pergola with bougainvillea climbing up the supports and tables made from reclaimed island wood." Clara's heart swelled. He wasn't just talking about staying. He was talking about investing in their shared future, integrating his skills and passions with hers, with the island itself. "I like the sound of that," she whispered, leaning her head on his shoulder. Over the next few weeks, their life together unfolded with a natural grace, like the tide ebbing and flowing. Kaelin moved his few belongings into Clara's cottage, and though it was a small space, it felt expansive with their combined presence. He spent his mornings helping Clara in the bakery, learning the intricacies of her sourdough starter, the perfect temperature for proofing, the delicate art of decorating a celebratory cake. He was a quick study, his architect's precision transferring surprisingly well to the culinary arts. In the afternoons, Kaelin would explore the island, sketching in a new notebook he'd bought from the general store. He wasn't just drawing structures. He was capturing the essence of the island, the gnarled roots of ancient trees, the way the light fell on a hidden waterfall, the intricate patterns of coral on the beach. He found a quiet satisfaction in this new form of creation, a liberation from the rigid constraints of his former profession. He talked about sustainable building practices, about using local materials, about creating spaces that harmonized with the environment rather than dominating it. One day, he showed Clara a sketch. It was an expansion of the Sweet Whispers bakery, a beautiful open-air pavilion built into the existing structure, with a high vaulted ceiling made of local bamboo, shaded by a trellis of flowering vines. There were comfortable benches, small tables, and a view that perfectly framed the turquoise sea. "It's beautiful, Kaelin," she breathed, tracing the lines with her finger. "But it's a big project." He smiled, his eyes alight with a familiar spark. "I know, but I think we can do it. With some help from the community, of course. Imagine, Clara, a place where people can truly embrace with your pastries, where the sea breeze carries the scent of cinnamon and salt. A place for gatherings, for quiet contemplation, for stories. The idea took root, nurtured by their shared enthusiasm. Kalen, with his architectural background, drew up detailed plans, consulting with local builders and craftsmen, ensuring everything was environmentally sound and respectful of the island's aesthetic. Clara, in turn, rallied the community, who were eager to help the couple who had so clearly found their home among them. Mr. Henderson offered his fishing boat to transport materials from the mainland. Mrs. Gable contributed cuttings from her most vibrant flowering vines, and young Leo, now a lanky teenager, volunteered his strong back for the heavy lifting. The construction of the Sweet Whispers Pavilion became a community project, a testament to the island's spirit of cooperation and the love that was blossoming between Clara and Kalen. The whispers, Clara felt, were now a chorus, a symphony of encouragement from every rustling leaf and gentle wave. As the pavilion took shape, so too did their life together. Their love deepened with every shared sunrise, every quiet evening spent reading on the porch, every challenge they faced and overcame as a team. Kalen taught Clara to appreciate the nuances of structural integrity, and Clara showed him the magic of coaxing life from a simple mixture of flour and water. They learned to communicate not just with words, but with glances, with touches, with the silent understanding that comes from knowing another's soul intimately. There were small moments, too, that etched themselves into Clara's heart. Kalen leaving a single, perfect plumeria on her pillow each morning. His quiet comfort when she had a bad day at the bakery. The way he'd hum a gentle tune as he washed dishes, a tune that always seemed to mirror the island's own melody. She discovered his love for old maps, his surprising talent for telling captivating stories to the local children, and his unwavering patience. One evening, after a particularly productive day on the pavilion, they walked hand in hand along a secluded stretch of beach as the moon painted a silvery path across the water. The air was soft, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine. Kalen stopped, turning to face her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box. It was made of a dark, polished island wood, adorned with delicate shell inlay. "Clara," he began, his voice a little shaky, "I never thought I'd find this. This peace, this joy, this completeness. The island brought me here, yes, but it's you who made me stay. You and your kind heart, your quiet strength, your incredible spirit." He knelt before her, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. He opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of soft seagrass, was a ring. It wasn't a diamond or a glittering jewel. It was a simple, elegant band crafted from hammered silver, inlaid with small, iridescent pieces of mother-of-pearl, each one glowing with a soft, ethereal light. It looked like a piece of the ocean itself, fashioned into a promise. "Will you marry me, Clara?" he asked, his eyes full of earnest hope, reflecting the moonlight. "Will you be my partner, my love, my home, forever?" Tears welled in Clara's eyes, hot and sweet. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, Kalen, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. A cool, smooth weight against her skin. He stood, pulling her into a fierce, tender embrace, and they held each other under the vast, star-dusted sky, the sound of the ocean their witness. The whispers around them weren't just soft murmurs now. They were a joyous chorus, a celestial celebration. Their wedding was everything they had dreamed of. Simple, heartfelt, and deeply entwined with the island they loved. It was held on the beach, just as the sun began its descent, casting a golden glow over everything. Clara wore a dress of flowing white linen, adorned with a lei of plumeria and jasmine. Kalen, handsome in a light linen shirt and trousers, had never looked happier. The entire island community was there. Mr. Henderson played his ukulele, Mrs. Gable had baked a dozen different treats, and young Leo, now almost a man, helped serve the food. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the sweet scent of tropical flowers. There were no elaborate vows, just simple promises exchanged from the heart, witnessed by the sea and the sky and the loving faces of their friends. As they exchanged rings, Kalen's a matching silver band, Clara felt a profound sense of belonging. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a reaffirmation of their commitment, not only to each other, but to the island that had brought them together. that had nurtured their love. After the ceremony, under a sky ablaze with stars, they danced barefoot on the sand, Kaylin holding Clara close, their bodies swaying to the gentle rhythm of the music and the waves. He leaned down, pressing a kiss to her temple. "We did it, my love," he whispered. "We built our dream." Clara smiled, her heart overflowing. And this is just the beginning. Their lives continued to intertwine, becoming a beautiful tapestry woven with shared moments, quiet joys, and boundless love. The Sweet Whispers Pavilion was completed, a magnificent addition to the bakery, quickly becoming the heart of the community. It hosted everything from morning coffee meetups to evening storytelling sessions, from small birthday parties to art exhibitions showcasing local talent. Kaylin's architectural touch was evident in every graceful line, every natural material, and the space truly did breathe with the island. Clara's bakery flourished, her reputation for both her delicious creations and her kind spirit spreading to neighboring islands. Kaylin, now a full-time resident and a beloved member of the community, found his calling in sustainable design, consulting on small projects around the island, always ensuring that every structure honored the land and its traditions. Their cottage, once Clara's solitary haven, became their shared sanctuary. Kaylin, with his designer's eye, helped them expand it, adding a light-filled studio for his sketches and a larger open-plan kitchen where they could bake together. A lush garden bloomed around it, a riot of tropical flowers and fragrant herbs, tended with care by both of them. It was a home built not just with wood and stone, but with love, laughter, and shared dreams. Years passed, marked by the changing seasons, the growth of their garden, and the deepening of their bond. Their love wasn't a fiery, tempestuous thing, but a steady, comforting flame, radiating warmth and light. They learned each other's quirks, celebrated each other's successes, and offered solace in moments of sadness. They grew older, their hands still intertwined, their eyes still holding the same spark of affection. The whispers, Clara realized, were no longer just for her. They were for them, a constant, gentle presence in their lives, guiding their decisions, soothing their worries, and celebrating their joys. They were in the rustle of the palm fronds outside their window, in the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore, in the intuitive understanding that passed between them without a word. They were the very breath of the island, a living testament to the enduring power of love. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues that mirrored the early days of their love, Clara and Kaylin sat on the porch of their cottage, their hands clasped. The scent of jasmine wafted on the gentle breeze. Their hair was streaked with silver, their faces etched with the lines of a life well lived, but their eyes still held the youthful sparkle of deep affection. "Remember that first morning?" Clara murmured, leaning her head on his shoulder. "When I woke up and you were just there?" Kaylin chuckled, a soft, rumbling sound. "I knew then. I knew everything was going to change. I didn't know it would be this," Clara said, her voice filled with wonder. "This beautiful, this complete." He squeezed her hand. "It was always meant to be, my love. The island knew it. The whispers knew it." He paused, looking out at the endless expanse of the sea. "And now we know it too, fully." Clara closed her eyes, listening to the familiar symphony of the island, the waves, the breeze, the distant call of a night bird. She felt Kaylin's steady presence beside her, the warmth of his hand, the gentle rise and fall of his chest. This was their melody, their love story, written not just by the island, but by every shared glance, every whispered secret, every comforting embrace. It was a song of two souls, harmonized by destiny and guided by the ever-present, ever-loving whispers that had led them home to each other for all their days. And as the stars began to pepper the darkening sky, Clara knew that their shared melody would continue, playing on, sweet and strong, for all eternity.